Hi, I'm Mash Punigala. Today I want to talk to you about something very important when you are building a brand. If you want to build a strong brand, a brand that will outlast your competition, in fact, leave your competition in the dust, that is, move away into the blue ocean, and a brand that connects with your target audience, with your customers, with the worldview of your target audience, and a genuine connection, not just a sales connection, not just something that is only one-sided, where your brand wants to sell, and of course the audience starts to buy whether they need it or not. No, I'm talking about creating a genuine connection, a connection which is like a symbiosis, right? So your brand benefits, your audience, your customers also benefit. If you want to build a brand like that, then one of the most fundamental things you need is brand equity. Now, you might have heard this word, brand equity, thrown about, and especially if you're listening to corporate speak, brand equity is something that all the big brands talk about. Now, of course, you have brand story, which is, you cannot build a brand without a brand story. But a brand equity is almost like an extension of the brand story. So what is brand equity? Brand equity is the value your brand has in the minds of your target audience or customers or potential customers. So it is about the value, not about the value of your service or product, although that forms a part of brand equity, as I will sort of list out now. There are two phases for brand equity. But the value is much more than that. The value goes beyond just your products or your services. Now, there are two phases in creating a brand equity. First, you need to create brand awareness. A brand awareness is where your target audience, your potential customers, your customers come to know about your brand, not only from a perspective of problem solving, that is, your product or service solves a certain problem for your target audience, but also goes beyond that. It goes into the realm of shared values, the worldview, shared worldview, and things like that. So creating brand awareness is not just advertising. It's not about plastering your brand all over the internet or real world and running ads and saying, okay, this is our brand, buy from us. No, maybe that would form a part of your marketing strategy, but that by no means, in fact, it's probably 10 to 20%. But awareness, brand awareness, is when your target audience, your primary customer archetype, right? They start to realize that your brand is something that connects with them. They might realize it, point blank, or it might be a subliminal kind of connection. So it's about building shared values. It's about building that kind of connection with their worldview. Once you create the brand awareness, the next phase is to sort of craft your brand experience to make your brand top of mind. Okay, so top of mind is more about your products and services once they become your customers, word of mouth, testimonials, reviews, and things like that. Okay, so let's analyze these two steps. First, creating brand awareness. Now, creating brand awareness is pretty straightforward. You broadcast your brand story through your messaging, and you do that on social media. You do that on your website, YouTube channel, whatever it might be. You broadcast your message, and your message is nothing but your brand story, right? Now, in one of the previous videos, I talked about the differences between origin story and brand story. You need both. Now, you need to, of course, broadcast your origin story, but you also need to, more importantly, broadcast your brand story. So your messaging, your brand messaging, is nothing but your brand story told, or rather communicated to your target audience. And you're doing that through different social media channels. So as your audience comes in contact with your message on social media, on various different channels, they start to form an opinion about your brand. And this opinion, it could be negative or positive. It depends on your message. If you build the right kind of customer archetypes, right? So their target audience archetypes, and then you build your brand archetype to align or reflect or sort of have a connection with your audience archetype, then your message, which is derived from that process, will be creating the right kind of opinion of your brand. If you crafted your message carefully based on your target audience archetype, which then reflects your brand archetype, so that you create a brand archetype that aligns with your target audience archetype, then your message will undoubtedly create a positive opinion, a positive impression about your brand. However, if you don't go through the process of crafting a brand message, crafting a brand story, then what happens is your message is hit and miss, right? So it might connect with some audience, some portion of the audience. It may not connect with the other portion of the audience. And it becomes arbitrary, right? So your messaging is mostly guesswork, or maybe it's based on your intuition, your instinct, or your experience with that market segment, which is fine. It works for a lot of people, but it's not scientific, right? It's not based on structure. It's not based on robust principles. It is based on your intuition. Now, if your intuition is fantastic, then that's great. Your message is gonna, and it's worked for many different brands out there, but mostly brands struggle when the message is not crafted carefully. So once you have this message, which takes into account your audience archetype, you start to express and communicate your core values, your vision, your mission, what you stand for. And those things align with your target audience. They align with your target audience not just for marketing purposes, but genuinely, right? Because that's how you build your brand strategy. That's how you build your positioning strategy. And if you're confused about how that works, I've got a ton of videos on how to create that. If the audience starts to make that connection with the shared values, they start to look at your brand and it fits in their worldview, right? So they want to associate with your brand. It's not just about sales, it's about associating with your brand. It's being a part of your brand. And of course, if you don't craft this properly, and if your message is random, it's just arbitrary, then of course, if you're in a hurry to sort of introduce your audience to your sales message, which is completely different, right? If you're in a hurry to introduce your audience to a sales message, then you're not gonna really form those connections. And yes, sales is important, but sales has to come through the natural process, and it has to come at a certain point in your audience's journey, right? You cannot force sales at an earlier point in the journey when the audience is not ready, right? So you need to wait patiently. You need to craft your message. You need to build a connection with your audience first, and then sales will automatically happen. And you know what happens? When you spend time and effort initially to do this, to create that connection, then your sales message becomes easy. Your sales process becomes easy. Your sales funnels, you don't need to invest that much in advertising. You don't need to throw money down the drain as a lot of brands do, because their message is weak. Their strategy is weak. So when it comes time to sales, they think, or they try and throw money at that problem. And throwing money at that problem does not work. I mean, look around you, right? Huge brands out there, they have millions, even billions of dollars in kind of their kind of assets, right? And they can throw millions at advertisement. They usually do. But some of their ventures, some of their endeavors, they fail miserably, right? Look at Apple, for example. Yes, it's got a string of successful products and services and all that. But remember the music platform that Apple tried to launch? It fell flat. It failed miserably because Apple is genius at building that brand story and communicating that brand story. Their brand equity is unlike any other, right? Any other brand in this world. And yet, when they were in a hurry, and okay, it's not sales, but it was something to do with that, right? And it failed miserably. So you got to be very careful in creating brand awareness. That's the first phase. The second phase is about creating the brand experience. So the first one is, of course, you're creating brand awareness, and then you're creating brand experience. Now, this brand experience, of course, has two flavors, right? It's got two parts. The first part bridges from the previous step, from the previous phase, from creating brand awareness. Your brand awareness itself is creating an experience, and you want that experience to be positive. And then the second step or second part of creating the brand experience is to do with your service or product. It's to do with your customer service. It's to do with how you communicate with your clients. It's to do with how you solve problems, how you solve refunds, how you solve complaints, all these things going on, even something as simple as the experience of opening a package, right? So let's say you sell something, it's a product, and somebody buys the product, you ship the product, and the customer opens that product. That instant, that experience of opening itself has some power to influence what the customer thinks of your brand. And in fact, sometimes if it is a bad experience of even opening the package, it's going to lead to a bad perception of the product itself because the customer is already in that mindset of frustration. That's why if you look at, again, companies like Apple, or they spend a ton of time, R&D, money in creating packages that have become, legendary, right? So people are more excited about the packaging than even the product. So that is the experience. That's just not just about the packaging. It's about the journey on your website, right? When they're making a purchase or when they're calling you up. It's what you say, how you say it. It's what your receptionist or whoever picks the phone up, how they sound, what are the scripts you have, what are the emails, the experience of shopping on your website or paying for the services or the goods. And then, of course, the shipping, the follow-up emails. This is brand experience, right? It has to be carefully thought through. You will not believe, I've seen, big brands, you buy something from them, you get an email, it's got typos in it. It's got a missing image, sometimes a missing page. Even small businesses do that, but small businesses sometimes spend a lot of money on, for example, a launch party, right? So they're launching their business, they host a small launch party, and they think it's good PR, but neglect this experience. And their shopping experience is terrible. Their emails that come afterwards is terrible. This confusion, you click on the tracking link, it doesn't work, so on and so forth. So if you're already in business, look at your brand experience. Look at that path from when someone hits your website, the process they go through to get to the product page, to evaluate the product, and then to your shopping cart, and then checkout, and then payment, and then, of course, follow-up of that. Your shipping, yes, a lot of people, because that's obvious one. So people, maybe they do take care a little bit more in terms of, packaging it and shipping it out, but they neglect other bits and pieces, and everything counts. Everything forms a part of experience. And this experience actually forms the core of your brand equity. Now, you may, create a fantastic brand awareness, right? Your equity goes up, and then it can come crashing down to the floor when someone receives an email with a typo or with a bad link, or they don't get an email or whatever, right? Or they get a packaging and they have to tear their hair out to open the package. Or in the case of IKEA, putting together one of their things, it's legendary, right? There's memes on it. People tear their hair out. So you got to be very careful in building equity, because once you build your equity, it's got great advantages. Number one, you don't have to spend a ton of money or effort in marketing, in securing sales, because your brand equity will get you that, right? Otherwise, if you don't have good brand equity, if you don't have that reputation you built, then you're going to have to spend a lot more. You're going to struggle with maybe, miserable kind of returns on that investment. Number two, brand equity gives you the power of the brand name, and that will allow you to charge more, to be more profitable, which the profit you then, churn back, you put back into developing the business, in building, a better brand. And it's a cycle that will take you to great heights, that will take you to a blue ocean. So It's people pay more for brand names because of the brand equity that's been built up. So it's almost like a no-brainer. You start with your brand story, you communicate that, create the brand awareness, and then you take the next step and you create brand experience. These three is the trifecta of a successful brand. All right. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions on brand equity, just hit me up below. I will try and answer them. But remember, brand equity is critical. All right. Till my next video, take care.